Hello, everyone. Happy another Monday as we proceed here with our topics for tonight. Looking forward to what we have here available for our discussions. The first is going to be related to the stages of change, and then the second is going to be related to communication styles. That's it. That one's kind of discussed related to like the work setting, so it's going to be interesting to see if there's anything that you may kind of relate to in regards to work and being able to kind of communicate that way. But let's just kind of dive into our topic here about the the stages of change here. So I'm just going to set up a few things before we get started, and then we'll be good to go. Okay. All right, so we're talking about the stage of change. We're talking about what it is, and I think what's important here is that at the end of the day, when we're looking at the stages of change, we just want to look at that the introspection for ourselves here, right? Be able to kind of determine where we feel we lie and being able to make the change that we're looking for, right? And that's where this kind of model and this graph kind of comes into play. Okay, so let's take a look here. And here we are. We're at the stages of change. So, with the stage of change, again, the goal that we're trying to do is trying to determine where we are at currently, right? So the biggest thing I like to always show first is just kind of the cycle here. Now, when you're looking at this, there's a lot of kind of collaboration with someone that may be experiencing difficulty in managing substances, right? So that's where kind of this stage of change usually comes into play. But what's important to understand is that this can be related to mental health as well too, and that's what we're going to explore about how the stage of change can relate to mental health. And we'll go through each of the stages here and think about where you feel you may lie on this, right? And what's at the end of the day, what's important to recognize is that if you feel you're in one of these stages, we can talk about what is needed in order to kind of move on to the next stage, or maybe get to the final stage here, which is what we're trying to get to, is maintenance. Okay? So, what are the stages of change? Well, let's go through them. So, the first one here about pre-contemplation, and we'll go into and dive into these in more detail as well too. So, the first stage here is pre-contemplation, and then it moves to contemplation, and then preparation, then action, then maintenance, and then possible relapse. Now, again, it's not going to go through each of one of these stages, hand in hand. So you go to pre-contemplation, contemplation. A lot of it may kind of skip around. You may go back, you may go forward. It's a very kind of fluid cycle in this sense as well, depending kind of what you're dealing with and what difficulties you're experiencing. So, with that in mind, let's take a look about these stages of change here, and let's start from the very top about what pre-contemplation is. So, with the pre-contemplation stage, this is where someone believes that there is no issue whatsoever. So, if you say, "Hey, man, like you're doing this stuff and it's really having an impact on us," that person may say, "Nope, I don't know what you're talking about. I think I'm perfectly fine." So, you can kind of move on along with your day. So this individual believes that there's nothing to change, right? And as you can kind of see too, especially if you're dealing with, I don't know, maybe family members, right, that may have difficulty in being able to make these changes here, that's where a lot of this kind of pre-contemplation part may come into play, is just when someone may say, hey, I don't have an issue and I don't have a concern, and it makes it hard for the change to even occur, right? So characteristics again, kind of the ignorance is bliss, the validate the lack of readiness. Well, this is for kind of what we're trying to do in regards to addressing it, right? So ultimately, at the end of the day, is that this person needs to make the change, and our goal is this to be able to kind of recognize or think about again, is this person able or wanting to make the change, right? So let's say that this person is, you know what, there might be an issue that's kind of going on. I'm not sure what to do or where to go, but I've been thinking about that there's been a concern. That's where the contemplation stage comes into play, right? Where there's that ambivalence about the change, maybe sitting on the fence, and considering kind of what the change will be for the next month, right? So this individual has begun to recognize that there is a problem, and it's just going to take that time to be able to kind of know, okay, what is it that I need to do in order to make this change here, right? So we can kind of provide the different possibilities or scenarios to help them out, to kind of support them as they're moving towards that stage of change. Next one here is preparation. So the preparation stage begins to act within a month. So let's say that the same individual is like, okay, I know I have a problem with anger. I keep on kind of getting in trouble with my family, my wife, or whoever. I know I want to take care of this, so I'm going to start researching different kind of anger places to go to, right? So that's the beginning, the preparation for that. And they say, okay, so I'm going to look through these in the next month. Maybe I'll be able to go to them, right? You feel that this person is making that first step towards making that change. That's where preparation is, right? So being able to kind of know that this individual is saying, hey, I'm ready to test the waters, right? Then we move on to the next stage here, which is the action stage. So they are practicing this new behavior for 3 to 6 months. So going back to the same kind of example that we have, the individual says, all right, I've been able to find a place for anger. I'm going to go to therapy. I'm going to practice kind of learning about my anger and understanding it. And in 3 to 6 months, that person's in that stage to kind of learn about that anger and learn about how they can improve themselves. That's what that action stage is, right? Being able to ensure that it's consistent. And then kind of the last stage that we want to reach to is that maintenance. So let's say they went through therapy, they had their anger management, and now it's that continual ability to manage that anger of like, okay, I've gone through anger management, I've gone through therapy, and I'm feeling a lot better. Being able to kind of take these and recognize it and really just kind of embrace it here. That maintenance stage is where it continues for 6 months in, right? So the more that you're able to really just kind of have that established, the better you'll be in that maintenance stage. Now we get to one of the stages here that we really don't want to dive into, but it often happens sometimes where we go into the relapse, right? And as you can see, this kind of relates to if someone is maybe experiencing substances or difficulty in managing them, because it may lead to kind of the relapse of those behaviors, right? Those old behaviors. So what's important to understand is that the relapse may lead to someone to go back to the preparation stage or contemplation stage, or even a pre-contemplation stage, something that happens. And what's important to understand is that there is going to be that cycle that's going to occur, and it's just being able to kind of recognize what is it that you feel you need to do to get back from relapse, right? So the more that we kind of practice these actions, the better they'll be. And again, at the end of the day, what we're trying to do here is we're trying to kind of identify what stage that we're in, right? And the more that we're bringing that awareness to our mental health and the symptoms there, the better we'll be able to know what we need to do to make those changes, right? Especially in the contemplation stage or preparation where we're beginning to make that change. If you're having difficulty with anxiety and depression and you're trying to figure out what that is, that's where you would say maybe kind of that contemplation preparation stage, right? Being able to kind of know what you need to do. And the action is being able to reduce that intensity of that behavior, right? So if the symptom is related to depression and it's leading to isolation, the goal is to be able to reduce that intensity of isolation. So what is the action? Maybe we're trying to go out and be social every couple of nights, right? That's the goal. And the more that we practice, the more the aware, we'll be able to kind of determine what stage we're going to be in. Okay? So hopefully that was an insightful topic there. We'll take a quick little break and then we'll dive into communication styles. Thank you.